Hi, and welcome to the very first Wildbreads podcast episode. My name is JC, and I am a local microbaker based in Los Baños, Laguna. And I've been thinking about the very first episode or the very first topic I'd like to discuss, or to talk about, or to make assumptions about, even on the very first episode. The very first, okay, but yeah, whatever. My first time. I'm very sorry, but. So, in my opinion, or to me, the best topic that I wanted, the very first topic that I want to talk about is the history of bread in the Philippines. As a country that was not, a bread country, before the colonizers came. And by bread, I mean a wheat-based bread that we know today. So I've been researching. Or I've been reading off of Google about Philippine history and the history of breads in the country in general. And before 1565, when the colonizers came, when they came, there was this one Spaniard who actually wrote down what they found in the Philippines, as there are bread in that sense, and they found out, and that dude found out that when they came, there was already a word, there was already the tinapay as a word, and tinapay, in Tagalog, now we know that as bread, and even in I'm Ilonggo, that my hometown is in Iloilo, and we also know tinapay, as bread. But before the colonizers came, tinapay was some sort of a rice cake or something, or a rice-based bread. Think of tortilla or something, tortilla or whatever. But so it was anything that it was rice, I believe, that was ground into a powder and then mixed with water, and then but yeah, so we've had bread, or a rice-based bread before the Spanish came, and then our idea of what bread is, or of what bread was, slowly evolved over the course of several hundreds of years, and that's what I've been really thinking about. Did we have sourdough before? Did we have sourdough in the past? And the answer, I think, and I believe, is hell yeah. We've had it. I mean, so I've been reading this. What do you call it? A postgraduate level textbook on the microbiology of fermentation, and it's incredible how they've what do you call it? They've illustrated illustrated the timeline on when humans started not really cultivate, but domesticating wild yeast, and it's incredible that for the last 10,000 years they believe that, that book stated that they believe, and they're pretty sure that humans from 10,000 years ago have when they started to domesticate plants such as such as wheat or rice or whatever, and domesticate also humans. I don't know why I quote, but so when humans started domesticating animals such as cattle, what else? I don't know, but domesticating animals and plants, this book was claiming that we also inadvertently started to domesticate wild yeast, and by domestication they mean, say there are cultures or tribes in I don't know, in very remote tribes that still practice natural fermentation, and we still see that today in industrial processes. And one of the best examples are, when people have fermented milk and made yogurt from out of it, to make it more digestible. It's just incredible to me how one guy probably like left his milk one night and like decided to drink it the following morning regardless of the smell or the taste of it, and like ended up having better digestion. That's amazing, because look, like if there's just 50 of you in a tribe, you'd be very wary of or you'll be wary of like drinking something that doesn't smell right, because like over the thousands of years that we've evolved as human beings, like anything that smells bad is probably poison or something. But the very first humans were probably, the very first people who fermented their food probably thought like, oh, like I don't have any more food left, or I can milk the cow in probably 3 more days. So they may have been desperate, or they may have been like very intelligent, I don't know. But anyway, back to where we were as a country, the Philippines. I really believe that the bread that we had, like when the colonizers came. I say colonizers because I really want to talk about colonization and how it affected us as well. But anyway, so when they came, they probably brought with them, they 99.9% brought with them sourdough, or naturally leavened, naturally fermented bread. But also I've read that we also had our own naturally fermented bread, and I've read somewhere, but I just can't remember that we had like fermented coconut water or something. I don't know if that turns into vinegar. I'm not sure. Maybe someone can send us a message about the things I'm talking about. But anyway, so yes, it's just all too interesting to me. And the thing about the reason why I wanted to talk about our history is that it actually relates to the hashtag I see online of it's this hashtag has been circulating, or has been used a lot of times for several years, and it's the hashtag real bread. And for me, it's like I used to believe that when I was starting when I was starting my bread making journey, my sourdough bread making journey. And the thing that I really believe that sourdough bread is better nutritionally. It is better. It keeps way better. You can put it out on your kitchen counter or on your table uncovered, not inside anything, and it survives for more than a week. But with the commercial breads that we have, that you find in stores these days, these industrially produced breads, they're just, for me, they just pale in comparison. So the like sourdough bread is better bread. And but now that I've been making bread for quite a while, like and making bread for the community here in Los Baños, and on occasion, like I'm really thankful that some people also some people who live far away also buy my products or buy my breads. I'm really happy about that, and thank you. But yeah, it's now the word real bread doesn't sit well with me anymore, and it's for this reason. I've been researching about the history of bread in our country, and So let me take you back to when Louis Pasteur, Pasteur, I don't know, but when he first kind of isolated a yeast strain. I think it was from a beer yeast or something. I'm not entirely sure, but he isolated. So okay, before that, so a natural culture or starter is actually, you know, a mix of good bacteria and yeast. So they're just there in a symbiotic relationship inside a culture. And what happened was Louis Pasteur, he isolated, or he separated both. So it's now, you know, he yeah, like I said, isolate. So he isolated this yeast from the good bacteria, and he found a way. I think, or I believe that he found a way to make it into a powder form, or like into granules and all that stuff. And you know, now that was in 1857. So I've been thinking, like, what happened before that? So it's safe to assume that, you know, the world had sourdough bread before, you know, the discovery of, or the isolation of that yeast. And you know, so the thing about like going back to the real bread thing, it's I feel like it's a disrespect to the generations of bakers before us, because, you know, when Louis Pasteur discovered it and made it commercially available to all bakers, that is also the time when the world's population was starting to explode, and you know, the industrial revolution, or the industrial age, was, you know, born. Is that right? But yeah, so industrialization happened alongside that, and now, you know, the world, or, you know, major cities then had growing population. And how do they feed them? Like, especially these bread centric countries. So with that, with a commercial yeast, it became very, very predictable. And you know, so a baker now can say, oh, okay, so I will have bread from the time of mixing to loading it in the oven in about 2, maybe 3 hours, as opposed to a naturally leavened product where, you know, you have to cultivate, you know, you have to make it strong enough to make the bread rise in the oven when the time comes. And it's also dependent on weather patterns, on the temperature, on the humidity. So as a baker, you know, you have to have, my guess is that you have to come from a generation of bakers where, you know, knowledge of 100 years of making bread with a starter culture has to be passed down to you, so that now you're like, okay, I know what to do. Because then back then as well, you know, you were taught as a kid, and like you probably hung out in your dad's bakery or in your parents' bakery. So now you'll have this like lifetime of knowledge. But then again, the Industrial Revolution happened, and then now you have to feed a lot more people. And then they probably needed a lot more bakers then. So now with this yeast, and with a very, very predictable what do you call it? Predictable product, predictable dough, predictable in its readiness. You know, now this yeast is commercially viable, and it's also respectable, because now you get to feed 1,000 people, you know, with bread that you can dish out, like, you know, thousands a day, as opposed to just maybe a handful, maybe 10, 20, 30, not really thousands, maybe hundreds. And then, you know, you can teach another baker, but this is all just assumption based on what I've read, you know, but I think it's a valid argument, that this real bread movement is a form is in a little in a way disrespectful to the, like I said, generations of bakers before us. But I mean, where I stand in this is that I believe that sourdough bread is nutritionally superior and it keeps well, but I just think that it's unnecessary to forgive the word, but to shit on bakers who don't bake with sourdough bread. And I have been a big part of Facebook. I mean, sorry, not a big part, but I've been a part of a lot of Facebook groups of baking, bread and artisan, groups, and usually people who, because sourdough bread is now so trendy, whenever you post something, your work as a home baker, when someone posts work that has been leavened by yeast, people are like, why did you do that and all that stuff. But it's just sad because now when you're a baker, it's fine because you're just doing it at home, but then sometimes you kind of need some validation, exterior, which I think is, you have to have internal validation by yourself first, before you do anything online, because people can be very, very toxic online. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. Yeah, so I mean, look, if you're a baker, maybe be a little kinder to to other people who use yeast. It's not their fault that they use yeast, but yeah, I really, I mean, my stand is, again, number one, don't shit on people. Number two, if you want to make, if you want to make better bread or real bread, then then do so without shitting on other people who use, this commercial yeast that's, that has fed our grandfathers and mothers. So yeah, anyway, I've been ranting for quite some time. So yeah, I think there's something else I want to talk about, but I can just probably save that for another time. But again, so like I said, we've had sourdough bread in the Philippines. Number two, commercially leavened or commercial yeast, and commercial yeast in breads has its merits, when the industrial age started. But now that people have access to knowledge online, then I lean towards sourdough bread being consumed by people, just because it's naturally fermented and it's really, really good for our guts and all that, and it's very highly digestible. I've had several 60-70-year-olds talk to me in the past that they've tried every other bread in the in the grocery and all that stuff, but they found that the sourdough bread has been the only bread that they that their stomachs didn't harshly react to. So I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about the response of I mean the trend. The trend is good for us bakers, for especially the sourdough bakers. This trend of people awakening to the fact that there is better bread, nutritionally, and that's sourdough bread. So yeah, man, I've you have to forgive me because this is my very first time. I'm all over the place. I actually have a lot of things in my mind that I want to talk about. So next time we're going to talk about, I still do want to talk about industrialization and the effect of industrialization to our breads, and I also want to talk about this artisan thing, because I remember I mentioned it earlier that there is like and this artisan, this word artisan, and that it's been overused, that now it doesn't mean anything actually for me. So if you've listened, if you're still here after 20 minutes, wow, thank you very much. I'll be doing this every Monday, and I really so one more thing, I really hope that I can get someone to discuss this with on this show. So I've reached out to a couple of people actually. So one is from a friend of mine who used to work in San Miguel, and has amazing knowledge on Filipino breads, and I really wanted to get her on the show and talk about like the history again of breads in the Philippines, from her perspective. And I've also invited a very popular Instagram baker who I do want to talk about home baking in general. I've also had two more. So one is another guy who makes sourdough bread, and he's also a miller at the same time. He mills for Philippine Foremost, and so that's interesting to me. I really want to get him on the show. And also the last one would be there's a fellow in UPLB in biotech, I think, who specializes in lactic acid bacteria. That's very, very good. Like it's a really good. I think it's a really good topic. So basically, he or she, I think, I don't know. Basically, they specialize in lactic acid bacteria. Now, it affects us, or its effects on the human body or the digestion. I'm not sure, but so I really do want to get them on the show. So, I guess that's it. What else do I have to say? I'm gonna give this thing a listen, and then, maybe there are some things that I missed, or I wanna expand upon. So, again, if you're here, this past 23 minutes, I thank you very much. Hope to see you again next time. If you're driving, drive safe. If you're working out, like I don't know if you're walking your dog, just be careful or whatever. But thank you again, thank you very much, and stay safe everyone. Cheers.